Studio Kingsley is proud to present this unabridged recording of Princess Kitty of KAWAII Wonderland by Byron Kingsley. Read by the author. This work is copyrighted 2022 by Byron Kingsley. This is a work of fiction. Names, characters, businesses, places, events, locales, and incidents are either the products of the author's imagination or used in a fictitious manner. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or actual events is purely coincidental. And now, Princess Kitty of KAWAII Wonderland.
私たちは物語を続けます。
In the mystical kingdom of KAWAII Wonderland, Princess Kitty, the daughter of a royal family that rules the kingdom and its peasants, venture off into the farthest reaches of the universe and towards a world where life can thrive and prosper. A world that is our own. Arriving in the European city of Kodono, just before summer vacation, she had met two ordinary children named Todd and Audrey Pratchett, who subsequently became friends. Odd as first impressions go, under her human disguise, Katie of Corico, she was introduced to the city the children lived in, although she wasn't welcomed, as her destiny has stated. But by the end, things took a sour turn when Kitty's plan to punish a mean-spirited neighbor named Constance Malchance only resulted in the children ending up severely punished by their neighbor. Now, on the night of a full moon is where we continue our story. Princess Kitty is willing to make her return to the Pratchetts, and with it, a grand adventure that is full of triumph and peril. Volume 2 Princess Kitty's Adventure in Bavaria. As soon as I saw you, I knew an adventure was about to happen. A. Milne. Chapter 8, in which something magical happens at the witching hour. Princess Kitty had been in the city of Kodono now for a week. She does find someone who can make herself feel right at home. However, she remained in a terrible mood after that incident with the neighbor. No longer Katie of Corico, she sat on the roof of the Pratchett house, looking up at the moon, a bright cream circle hanging in the air like a lantern, as if hung by a celestial giant.
My fault,
she snapped.
Everything is my fault. Well, I do not agree. All I ever did for them was try to get back at that accursed neighbor for doing such torment and unfairness to them. Teach her a lesson. I never knew it would fail.
There was a pause. Then she closed her eyes and lowered her head. She can see Mr. and Mrs. Pratchett conversing with the children in their room. However, Todd, upset after what happened, decided to start growing up by tearing down the drawings on the wall and threw them into the trash. Then she can hear a voice full of anger. We're finished with that girl. I wish we never met her. She was shocked, realizing that was Todd's voice as it continued on. Fun makes us act irresponsibly and gets us into trouble. We'll make sure we never get into trouble again. It's time to grow up. No more fun. They're going out. Every single one of them. As soon as she saw Mr. Pratchett snatch the wastebasket away from Todd and slap him in the face, her eyes shot open and her body shook uncontrollably. Looking around, she knew that she was still on the roof.
They wish they never met me,
she asked.
after I remained here for a week, after 3 days of being with them.
She rose up to her feet, displeased.
Then where shall I go from here? If you can hear me, if at all, Pratchett's, I have no place else to go. I won't even go back to the kingdom where I'm from. I will not abandon my destiny. From now on, I vow to make it up to what happened yesterday. I have found out, beyond any doubt whatever, that when a child decides to punish a grown-up who deserved it, it's certain to disagree in what you're doing. If you two would wish that you never met me, is there a chance for you to forgive me for all I have done?
Her ears twitching, she can hear the clock tower striking 12. Bong, bong, bong. She sat back down on the roof, closing her eyes.
The witching hour,
she whispered.
Of course.
Bong, bong, bong.
This is a perfect time to do it in the middle of the night.
Bong, bong.
You two just stay put, Pratchett's. Just stay put. I'm coming. I'm coming. I'm coming. I'm coming.
Bong, 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 bong. She did mean what she said after all. She can't wait to get started. While Todd and Audrey still slept, all seemed peaceful for them, until the voice of Princess Kitty whispered to them, accompanied by the bells on the tree.
Which place shall we go? Which path shall we take? If we don't take any, we will soon make a mistake.
Todd was the first to wake up by sitting up to see what's going on. He shook his sister awake as the voice of Princess Kitty is being heard again.
Which place shall we go? Which path shall we take? We shall be ready to go, though we'll tremble and quake.
There, the children saw that cat-girl princess sitting on top of the dresser. So you came back after all, Todd whispered. She turned away, afraid that she'd start crying if she were to look at the children in the eyes.
Yes,
she muttered.
I'm no longer Katie of Coracle. She already caused enough trouble yesterday. You two will never see her again. Not even your mother, your father, and the grandparents. Especially your neighbor. What a reckless and irresponsible fool I've been, getting you two in trouble like that, having your neighbor whip you mercilessly with her belt. Your sister even said that it was all my fault, which I've admitted. Maybe it's best if I should leave, so you two won't get into any more trouble because of me. After all, you two have wished you never met me.
No, Todd said. We hate to see you leave. We really like you here with us. We got over it already. Trust me, Kitty, it'll be all right, she asked, her voice now soft.
Has any of you told them the truth about me while I wasn't there?
I did, he said. But you're here now.
That is an honest thing you have ever done.
Why did you come back? Do you know what time it is?
Of course I do. It's the witching hour.
The witching hour? It's believed to be the time when witches would cast their strongest spells and hexes due to it being an in-between time. You're not a witch, are you? Audrey said.
Do I wear black clothes and carry a broomstick with a talking black cat on my shoulder?
Princess Kitty asked.
I'm not a witch, Pratchett's. Even though I'm a cat, my fur isn't black. This witching hour is going to be different. Right now, this is the one chance for me to make things right.
What are you going to do for us? Todd asked.
I'm going to take you two on an adventure,
Princess Kitty said. Adventure? In the middle of the night?
I don't think we have time for that.
But she smiled and said,
I'm afraid that you're sadly mistaken.
How could I be mistaken?
Todd frowned.
In the witching hour, there's always time for adventure.
Then she recites a poem.
In the witching hour, the Wonderland decree, where adventure gets thrived and remade, where the opportunist takes heart and see how his outset should be portrayed.
You talk little sense. It made me discomforted.
Todd said.
One of these days,
Princess Kitty said,
you don't have to be discomforted. Just think of the adventures you two will be having because of me. You two can end up in different worlds. Wherever I take you to, you could have sworn you saw the envy through the eyes of the other children. But once you two mention my name, they probably want to come with me. After all, I think about loving all children like you.
I'm happy to hear that.
Todd smiled.
If only you can make yourself known. Where will you take us?
Audrey asked.
First, we need a transport, probably from your imagination's desire.
Princess Kitty said.
From a drawing, from a thought.
You can find our drawings tacked to the wall.
Todd points at a wall, where their drawings are tacked there. There's a pegacorn, a unicorn with wings, a giant swan boat, a large swan with the body of a boat, a snail house, a giant snail with a house as the shell, and a dog train, a giant dachshund with windows on a side and multiple limbs.
How exquisite,
Princess Kitty said.
They remind me too much of KAWAII Wonderland.
I still feel bad that I tore them down and almost threw them out the window,
Todd said.
I thought it was the right thing to do after what happened.
I'm glad you've changed your mind,
she said.
I hate to see those drawings get thrown away like they don't have purpose.
She then spots one drawing tacked to the wall. A large cat with 4 legs, large holes on each side, and a large bushy tail. She points at it.
This one especially. What kind of creature is this?
It's a cat bus,
said Audrey.
I drew it when I was in school. I showed it to my teacher, and she thought this cat had holes on it.
What do cat buses do?
Well, it's like a bus. It can run like a dog, fly like a bird, bounce like a ball, and hop like a rabbit across forests and mountains and lakes, and even oceans to reach a place you can go.
Princess Kitty, as cunning as she may be, was impressed and said,
Makes you wonder if you can see the real thing.
Well, no, Todd said. It's only a drawing. That's when she pulls out her scepter.
True, it's only a drawing. But only this will bring it to light.
You sure you know what you're doing this time?
I used magic on myself earlier. So this time, this is why I use magic other than on myself.
With a wave of her scepter, she said an incantation.
From the noble scepter of the blue-blood feline, awake, for the gift of existence is thine.
The wings on the scepter flutter, and a beam from the star shoots out towards the drawing. The cat-shaped bus on the drawing glows brighter and brighter, and in 30 seconds flat, it stopped and was still. Then a gentle breeze blew over the drawing, and it was still again. You mean that's it? Todd asked.
Oh, it should be,
she answered.
Well, something should be happening by now. My scepter hasn't let me down before, I mean.
That's when the ground starts to tremble beneath their feet. Some of the books fall from the shelf. The sound of the ringing bells on the tree grew more frantic as the branches sway. Todd and Audrey looked around in confusion, wondering what was going on.
Oh, good!
Princess Kitty exclaimed.
It's about time something is happening. Something big!
And Harry?
Audrey asked.
Oh, yes! How right you are!
It must be the cat bus for my drawing. Not so loud, Todd said. We don't want to wake up Mom and Dad, let alone this tremor.
You mustn't worry if your parents are awake by it,
Princess Kitty said.
Something will happen when it's over. You wait and see.
Eventually, the tremors stop. A silence follows, occasionally broken by the faint barking from outside.
Well, do you think it came? Todd asked.
You tell me, Todd.
Only one way to find out. He looked out the window, only to see nothing. I just thought, if it's somehow in front of our house.
Oh, Todd, it might be.
Maybe it's invisible, Audrey said.
Then it'll be completely impossible for you two to find it,
Princess Kitty stated.
So your best bet is to head outside and look to see if it's there. Always be aware of the old proverb. When something that isn't real comes around the corner, then it must be believed to be seen.
Todd and Audrey changed their clothes, and he grabbed an electric torch that was on the desk. If something hides in the dark, it's the only way to find them, he said. This is called a torch. We use it to light dark things out on a dark night. You know, it would be amazing to see a cat bus at night, Audrey said. A real thrill.
Then you don't have to use that, Pratchett's,
Princess Kitty said.
I can go outside in the dark with you if you want. At night, I can see better, even if it's as pitch black as oil.
It's best if you stay here while we go outside, Todd said. And we'll stay quiet so we don't wake up everyone, even the grandparents. While Princess Kitty stays behind, as quiet as mice, Todd and Audrey slowly went downstairs. What if it's not there? He whispered. It's out there, she said. Kitty said so. Still got the torch? I'll turn it on when we go outside. As soon as they reached the front door, he said to her, Wait, I want to make sure they're asleep. He carefully opened the living room door and saw the grandparents still sleeping. Relieved, he slowly closed the door and said, Okay, good, they're still asleep. Let's go. They opened the front door and head out into the open. After carefully closing the door, he switched on the torch, and the search is on. They open the front door and head out into the open. After carefully closing the door, he switched on the torch, and the search is on. Let's find it quick and head back to Kitty, he said. We shouldn't be here in the dark too long. Any idea where it is? She said. I wonder how large it is. It might be big enough to fit children or a grown-up. Probably. We'll just have to see. They would see, because on top of their roof is something enormous that's shrouded in dark. The figure's yellow eyes with slit pupils looked down at the children, and it smirked, half closing them. Maybe we should try the roof, Audrey said. Good idea, Todd said. He waved his torch towards the roof, and then dropped it in fright onto the grass. They look up. The figure's eyes begin to shine towards them like headlights. Then the most peculiar thing happened. The figure gets illuminated with lights from within its hollow body, with large holes on the sides like windows. When it revealed itself, it looked like a large cat with gray fur and black stripes, 9 feet high, 15 feet long. Its huge bushy tail swished back and forth pensively, like a slow metronome, the hollow body rising and falling as it breathed deeply. There were 2 little pink mice, motionless and silent, with glowing red eyes, that lay on top between a long red destination sign, reading, Pratchett House. The children were freaked out, yet amazed by the sight of the cat on top of the roof. They actually felt a sense of coldness when they saw it, unable to turn away or run back into the house, risking waking up the grandparents or their mother and father. It must be believed to be seen, Todd smiled. Just like Kitty said, Audrey said. But what would Mom and Dad say when they saw this? I bet they would freak. Without warning,
There was a great leap over the front garden, and the bus came crashing next to them on the road, throwing them off balance. They get up just in time to come face to face with the enormous head. The glowing eyes glared at the children. Audrey decides to approach the beast, but Todd stops her for a moment. Seeing that the cat begins growling, which sounds more like a cat's purr, urging his sister to touch that face, he reluctantly releases her. Already she's reaching out with her hand. As soon as her hand almost touches the face of the bus, it snorts and jerks its head forward. She gasps and backs off. Hearing the beast purring, she tries again slowly. This time, she has succeeded. She smiled and wrapped her body around much of the cat's face in a hug. Unknowingly, the bus sticks out its huge tongue and gives her a long and friendly lick. She backs off, laughing while wiping her face. The bus's mouth opened wide and lets out a huge, deafening roar that seemed to shake the very ground. It was so loud that even Todd and Audrey had to cover their ears. "Let's head inside," he said to his sister. "To Kitty." As the children carefully went inside the house, the lights inside Mrs. Malchance's house are turned on. The bus looked at it and growled. Constance Malchance, the devil woman according to the Pratchett's, loads up her Winchester rifle when she hears Chopper barking from the backyard. After biting her leg, he was tied to a metal stake as punishment. He was barking up at the bus-shaped cat on the roof before she opens the back door and throws one of her old shoes at him to keep him quiet. "Shut up, you lousy mutt!" she barked. "You are already in timeout for biting my leg. I'll never feed you again if you keep it up." Chopper looks up at the bus and whimpers, but his master doesn't see it yet. "That's what I thought," she sneered, glaring at the Doberman. "Now, I've got rats to kill. Stupid dog!" She slammed the door shut. The frightened Chopper whimpers when he looks up at the cat bus again, who begins to lick its lips. From what I can tell, I think it must be hungry. Constance unlocks the front door and barges through, armed with her Winchester. "Who's out there?" she roared. She looks around and saw nothing ahead. "You better come out!" she screamed. "Don't make me bust you!" She marches around to find a bunch of 2 black cats on top of open trash bins. She saw them eat what's left of her leftover chicken. She didn't shoot them with a Winchester because she doesn't want to wake up anyone in the neighborhood, including the Pratchetts. Instead, she swung it at them. "Shoo! Get out!" she said, swinging her Winchester. The cats stopped eating and hissed angrily at her. "Out, you lazy cats!" she snapped, swinging her Winchester at one of the cats. One cat screeched in alarm as it was knocked backward. The other jumped off the bin. They hissed before running off. Better. But if they come back, she's sure to shoot them both. She turned and headed towards the front door, but she stopped when something metallic dropped in front of her with a loud clang. She looked down to find that it was a metal stake, a piece of long, plain rope still tied to it. But the other end was torn. It's as if it's been ripped out of the earth by someone that is inhumanly strong. That's when she heard a low growl above her, along with a sickening crunch of bones. It sounded big, sounded closer. She looked up and saw the bus-shaped cat on the roof with a small pair of hind legs sticking out from its mouth. Then, the terrifying realization came to her. Chopper. She watched in horror, almost dropping the rifle,
as it tilts its head back and swallows the mangled Doberman in one big gulp. The hind legs slid inside. She saw the neck bulging out from its meal, slowly going down, down, down. And that was it. The monstrous creature glared at Constance and lets out a deafening roar at her. The destination sign read, "Devil Woman." She stepped back, but she trips on the driveway. She gets up and fires a shot at the bus in the face. The bullet struck one of its eyes. It did nothing but make it angry. Seeing that it's invulnerable, she quickly makes it to a jalopy. She flung open the door and hurls the Winchester onto the floor and gets into the driver's seat. The bus bellowed, leaping onto the front garden and trampling the flowers. The enormous head even smashed through the fence, sending bricks flying onto the road. Constance puts her key in the ignition and turns it, only for it to stall at the last second. She tries again to no avail, and her terror was extreme. She can just watch as the giant creature slowly coming towards the driveway, towards the front of the jalopy. When the creature roared, it was horrifying. A scream from an animal she hasn't even heard of before. She felt the spreading warmth in her pajamas. Blushing, she realized that she wet herself. She was simultaneously embarrassed and terrified, but she knew she had to try with all her might to get her car to start. It just had to. She couldn't just stay here. Every time the monster moves, her hands were shaking, trembling against the dashboard. "Get away!" she finally screamed. But the bus bellowed and lunges at the hood of the car. The enormous head butt against it. The jalopy moved nearly a meter back. Then the bus takes a bite, taking out the headlights, the front bumper, the grill, and a chunk of the radiator. Then one huge paw came down, breaking the windshield. Desperate, she hides herself, her body under the dashboard. The bus's huge paw banged down once more, shattering the windshield and denting the metal. Then it moved around the side of the car. At the back, the animal snorted, a deep, rumbling growl. It sank its huge fangs into the spare tire mounted on the back of the car, and in a single headshake, tore it away and hurled it through one of the side windows of her house, shattering it. The rear of the car lifted onto the air for a moment, then it thumped down with a crash. "Oh, God!" she continued screaming. There was a shrill, metallic scrape, as well as the tearing of vinyl, as claws raked the roof of the car. Her heart was pounding in her chest. The bus bellows again and slammed its front paw against the side of the car, tipping it into the air and have it crash back down, the springs and metal creaking loudly. Then the world tilted crazily as another attack causes the car to slam onto its side, shattering the side windows. Then the enormous head slams onto the chassis, causing the car to capsize completely. The remaining glass windows shatter. She found herself on the ceiling. The cat bus towers over the jalopy. Like a dog, it puts one paw on the chassis and tears the undercarriage with its jaws. Biting at anything it can get hold of, it rips the rear axle free, tosses it inside, and bites into a tire. The tire explodes, startling the creature. As the frame continues to buckle, Constance crawls out the side window, the car collapsing behind her. The bus watches as she went inside the house and slammed the door shut before locking it. The bus bellowed and is about to smash through the door, but it senses Todd and Audrey coming. With a warning snarl towards Constance, the cat bus heads back to the opposite house. The destination sign read, Pratchett House. Todd and Audrey came out the front door, with Princess Kitty joining them.
"I'm I'm so glad you two are impressed of what I did, children,
she said to them.
Where do you think the bus will take us? Audrey asked.
Well, consider it the start of what's to come. Just say the word and the waltz is ready to begin. However, if you're asking me where the bus will take you, you're asking the wrong person. Only the conductor knows.
Conductor? Todd asked.
If this huge cab with holes is considered a bus, it has to have two people to run a tight ship. A conductor and an engineer,
Princess Kitty said.
Aren't conductors supposed to belong in trains?
I think conductors belong in buses. What could be more promising than that?
Any idea where they are?
Audrey said.
I'll go ask the bus,
Princess Kitty said. The enormous face glower at her as she comes face to face with it. She asked,
Dear Cat Bus, I'm here to ask you, where will we find your engineer, as well as your conductor, who brings natural order so near? My friends would like to go somewhere. I hope you understand, loud and clear.
The cat bus sucks in a double lungful of air and lets it out in a deafening roar directly into her face. She somehow understood what the bus is saying to her.
What does it say?
Todd asked.
He said that it's already been taken care of,
Princess Kitty said.
They're present inside.
The bus is a male?
Of course he is. You can check behind the undercarriage if you like. But even that is considered a waste of time in doing so. Isn't it, Cat Bus?
The cat bus nods and bends down. One of the windows stretched downward, becoming a door. Out came a short, balding, overweight old man, who is as short as Todd. He had a white, bushy mustache and matching eyebrows and hair on the sides. He had a black eye patch on the left side of his eye. He was dressed in a brown shirt, brown cap, beige knickerbockers, and black shoes.
All aboard the Mighty Cat Bus,
he said.
Free of charge, but be quick about it. Don't ever tell me why.
Thinking that the old man is a conductor, Audrey asks,
Excuse me, sir.
What is it? He said.
Be quick. We must depart on schedule.
Are you the conductor of this cat bus? She asked. He held her back and said,
What?
Are you the conductor of this cat bus? She repeated. He opened his mouth and roared,
Me? A conductor?
Then Princess Kitty burst into shrieks of laughter. What's so funny? Todd asked.
Your sister thinks the engineer was a conductor,
she said.
And it's no laughing matter, the engineer bellowed. I ain't like that.
Be positive, engineer,
she said.
You'll frighten little Audrey, and you should know how sensitive she is.
You like to see the real conductor, little girl? He asked Audrey. I would, she said. I have something to ask him.
Him?
He asked. I want you to know that me boss is of the opposite sex. The conductor is a woman, Todd calls out. I really find it hard to believe. The engineer points a warning finger at him.
You better believe that for your sake. There was the proverb.
Oh, don't worry, Todd said. We already know that. She told us. The old proverb stated, when something that isn't real comes around the corner, then it must be believed to be seen.
I'm talking about a different proverb,
the engineer said. Then he spoke in a foreign language.
Shinjinai hito wa karera ga atai suru mono o te ni irimasu.
He paused, then said darkly,
the old Japanese proverb to all humanity. Translated, it said, those who don't believe get what they deserve.
Get what they deserve, Todd said. A very threatening proverb.
Surely that's something we shouldn't be of any concern in the days ahead,
Princess Kitty said to the engineer.
We shall see, he said bitterly. We shall just see.
Engineer, Audrey said, I would like to see the conductor.
I had a feeling that whoever she is, I believe that she'll be very lovely.
He shudders. Oh, you have no idea what you're in for between you and her, ain't you? He points a warning finger at her. Don't say I didn't warn you. Then he calls out from inside the cat bus. Boss! Someone would like to see you! He heads out the bus to make way. Now emerging from the cat bus made Audrey paralyzed with fear. Clearly, it's not what she had hoped. It was an Abyssinian cat with the figure of a human female. She has tan fur and shoulder-length blonde hair, whiskers on her red nose, and brown ears on the top of her head. She was grinning perpetually from ear to ear, as one might smile on greeting a stranger, nor was her expression fierce. Her yellow eyes with black slit pupils were fixed upon Audrey's with great intensity. When she took a step towards the girl, Audrey urged to have the audacity to back or turn away, as fear grips her entire body. This female conductor was unlike any woman Audrey had ever met, or any cat, to put it candidly. She was tall, 2 feet taller than the engineer. The female conductor dons a coat that was scarlet-colored, unbuttoned at the front, loose-sleeved, with silken cuffs at the wrist. Over it, she wore a tight brown waistcoat underneath her white blouse. She was shod in black high-heeled boots with silver soles, over gray tights, and on her hands were white gloves with the claws protruding out of them. She donned a scarlet-colored cap with a white star reading Neko in gold letters, and a blue bow tie around her neck. And of course, she was generally endowed. Her large bosom at the front of her blouse bounced and jiggled with every step she took. And why, pray, should you be scared of me when you wish to see me in the first place? She demanded. Her voice was calm, almost kindly, but deep and sultry. Audrey swallowed hard, trying her best to keep the tears that were forming in her eyes from coming and flowing down her face. She answered.
Audrey,
Princess Kitty said.
please go on.
The cat growled at the girl's hesitancy. When the girl finally spoke, her voice was a whisper.
You're her, aren't you?
Audrey asked.
You're the cat bus conductor.
The cat bowed. Of course I am. However, I prefer to be called a conductress. I'd be happy to serve you tonight, if you're not afraid of me. Audrey resisted the ridiculous impulse to return a curtsy, but even Todd begins to feel nervous about that buxom creature. The conductress crossed her arms. So, once and for all, are you supposed to be scared of me, little girl? Of course she's supposed to be, Todd calls out. Need I remind you that she's only 8 years old and I'm 12, going on 13? She hissed at the boy, scaring him. Then she shall know me better hereafter.
You do remind me of that cat I read in a poem once, Audrey said.
What is it that you've read? Asked the conductress.
It's called Dear Puss by Beatrice Kane.
Can you recite it to me? I never heard of it before. On demand, Audrey began to recite the poem to the conductress.
I once met a cat named Dear Puss because her coat and her eyes are gold. And though she's not dead, Puss went up and said, Do you think by your words am I bold? Of course you are bold, I truly said. They say that you have great claws. They better think twice because of the mice, which you do away with your jaws. And then she pulls out a little mouse, and when she saw it flail, With a sickening crunch, the mouse became lunch, although she did not eat the tail. "And why would you do that?" I said without looking. "Because I can't see the mouse die." "Are their heads unadjusted? Can they be trusted? I really just want to know why." "I had to kill them," Dear Puss said, "even if they do no harm. From what I've seen, I had to turn green because the mice had more charm." "They must be untrusted," she also said, "because of their sins in the past. Back then it was vague to bring forth a plague by the mice and the rats who run fast. I call it a game of cat and mouse. The rules of it remains unchanged. Along with the rats who are wearing their spats, it's my presence that makes them derange." "Well, I've heard enough," I truly said. "You may go and do as you please. Though I think it's odd when I pray to God, when puss somehow end up with fleas." The engineer lost his patience and said, "Are you going to ask me, boss, or not?"
"I wouldn't keep the boss waiting,"
Princess Kitty said.
"would you?"
Audrey musters and approaches the conductress. The creature only grinned when she saw the girl. Aside from the uncanny appearance, she may look nice, Audrey thought. Still, she had very long claws underneath her gloves, and her huge fangs inside her red mouth. So Audrey felt that this creature ought to be treated with respect. "Dear Puss," Audrey began, rather timidly, as she did not at all know whether the creature would like the name. However, she only grinned a little wider. Audrey went on. "Where will Cat Bus go with us three?" "My dear child, that depends a good deal on where the cat bus would likely go," purred the conductress. Todd moved in. "I don't much care where." "Then it doesn't matter where the cat bus may take you three," purred the conductress. "So long as we go on an adventure with Princess Kitty," Todd added as an explanation. "Oh, that can be arranged, darling." "And does he have any idea where he'll be heading?" "It doesn't matter, because even the cat bus himself lacks the knowledge where to go." The window stretches into a door. When Todd and Audrey heads inside the bus, they can't help but to feel the soft fur underneath their feet. They look around in astonishment. This was the craziest bus they had ever been on, if at all. The interior of the bus, even the side seats, are coated with fur. Aside from that, there's only one piece of furniture. An old Victrola. "Is this all fur?" Todd asked. "I've just had this bus bathed," the engineer snorted, "and I ain't gonna see any tracking dirt. Now take a seat." The children sat next to Princess Kitty. The conductress was the last aboard, saying to them, "Hope you're not scared of him when he first saw you on the roof." "No, we're not scared," Todd said. "Even though he's very intimidating. More intimidating than you." She scoffed. "Very stupid to say that. The cat bus is like a kitten compared to me." She pulls out a violin from her coat. That's when she begins to sing to them while playing her violin. "Oh, you may not think he's scary, but don't judge on what you can find. He'll claw you to ribbons if you can judge, this cat who still has a mind. They can keep their savage tigers, their lions mighty and tall, but no cats like the cat bus, and he can tower them all. He can take you anywhere when there's no earthly way of knowing. Just give a ring and he'll decide which place he will be going. He might take you to Slag's Ravine, where people are daring and soft, the mining town where crystals are found to make floating islands aloft. Or he might take you to Kingsbury, where the people are fit and royal. Those patient men and women are unselfish and not afraid of turmoil. Or maybe an old-fashioned ingery, where aristocrats have blood so blue, this legendary city has anything to fulfill a purpose for you. Or perhaps Bomvaria is where you'll be in a real quest. This relentless town will persuade you to figure out what's best. So come aboard, don't hesitate, and don't you ever fall flat. You're in good paws, he only has 4, for he's like a Cheshire cat. She bowed and said, I don't do encores, but I'm available for weddings and funerals. We don't know where to go, Todd said. There are some weird places you told us, but out of all of them, what would Bomvaria be like? What awaits you there is for you and your sister to find out. Why, I see the lonely road that leads so far away. When we're off, you'll see the distant lights that left behind the day. If it's too much for you, you both have the Princess Kitty to look after you. As long as you have her, you have nothing to fear. But misfortune will occur if she's not here. Then we would like to go there, Todd said, finally making up his mind. The boss will be ready for his scheduled departure, the engineer said. Princess Kitty looked at the children.
Enjoying yourself so far? Even though the bus doesn't go yet, I guess that's some anticipation.
What about Mom and Dad? Todd said. We wouldn't want them worried sick, would we?
Todd, if your father said that he believed in me while I'm in your room, then he might as well tell the others. They better get used to it.
She winked. To the children, it had been hard leaving their mother and father unexpectedly, especially their Grandpa Jack, always so good to them, and going off into the unknown. Well, I'll be blowed! A loud male voice shouted. Everyone looked out the window to see an amazing surprise. Grandpa Jack, this old fellow of 90 1/2, stood in front of the doorway of their house with a wicked smile on his face, still dressed in his pajamas.
Ah, it's always nice to see your grandfather out of bed for once,
Princess Kitty said, remembering the time she met him under the alias Katie of Corico. Todd and Audrey got out of the cat bus, much to the engineer's annoyance, and into the arms of their grandfather. His smirk never wavers. So, you two decided to go somewhere without your grandfather, aren't you? He chuckled. Don't worry, Todd said. We got Kitty to look after us. I happened to see a girl with pink hair before, but not with cat ears and a tail, Grandpa Jack said when he saw her on board the cat bus, waving. He looked at the enormous face of the cat bus, making himself unnerved, but the grandchildren calmed him down. I don't like that cat staring at me like that, he said. Is that so? Purred the conductress from behind. He turned around and was shocked at the sight of her face. Then he clutched at his heart, breathing heavily. Please don't do that, darling, she said. It's rude. Who are you? He demanded. Are you the driver? I'm the conductress of this cat bus. The driver you mentioned is the engineer, a short-tempered one with a surly disposition. If it's adventure that these two children want, I'll be the one who can provide it for them. I don't think I can trust a cat like you, so why should I? She said. I was hoping you'd ask. Well, I was born from a litter of kittens, I have an interest in theater, I travel quite extensively, I lived through the Edo period, and I have a pretty good time during that. I've read A Dog of Flanders about 1,467 times, and it keeps getting funnier every single time the dog froze to death at the end, even though I felt sorry for the kid. Not to mention the fact that I do resent dogs, enough to make me throw a basket of puppies into a pit, douse them in kerosene, light a match, set it ablaze, and just watch them scream in agony until they're nothing but ashes. Now what do you think, darling?
I think I could be trusted, don't you? When she finds him completely shocked, she sneered. Well now, I hope you're not accusing me of kidnapping, darling. And if you wanted to participate on this joyous odyssey, either you speak now or be away. Looking at his children, Grandpa Jack said, May I suggest a compromise? I would like to go with my grandchildren and their friend. If it's against the rules and regulations... Well, you can curse both the rules and the regulations, she said. I'm just wondering if there are no regulations at all. As long as you're still acting like a kid instead of a grown-up, or accurately, a kid trapped in a grown-up's body. When it comes to travel, I'm the only creature you can depend on. As long as I don't see your face for the rest of the trip, that makes me feel quite young again. I'd do anything just to be with my grandchildren, even if I had to get out of the house. Why, you got me thinking that I'm wasting your time. Actually, I think I'm beginning to like you already, because you know how much you humor me. Take your seat on board the bus. I've had it bathed so you don't have to fuss. Grandpa Jack and their grandchildren all board. They were aware that they felt the bus's fur underneath their feet. Grandpa Jack was anxious when he first boarded the cat bus. He sat next to Princess Kitty and said, This is some curious bus we've boarded. The conductor boards the cat bus and purrs. Strange, yes. Unpredictable, yes. Capricious, yes. Intimidating when it comes to felines, yes. But curious? I shall have your tongue for saying that. Why not? He asked. You don't know anything about cats, do you? Curiosity killed the cat. Suddenly, there was a roaring yawn, and the great cat bus lurches slowly downward. Is that supposed to happen, Miss Cat? Grandpa Jack asked. Miss Cat, repeated the conductress. Funny, because your granddaughter called me Dear Puss. Just like the one from the poem, Audrey explained. I didn't mean to kill him with curiosity, Grandpa Jack said. Who said you did? Purred the conductress. You hairy oaf! Came the enraged shout of the engineer as he punches the cat bus in the face, trying to wake it up. You wake up this instant! You want to make us fall behind schedule? Well, I forbid it! She explains. It's really a bad predicament in which the bus breaks down, making us fall behind schedule. Break down? Grandpa Jack asked. As in falling asleep, darling. In order to make our departure in time, he has to be awake to do so. But this one-of-a-kind cat bus is known to be fatigued and sometimes cannot cope in the middle of the night. And the more he slept, the more difficult the task of waking him became. Boss! The engineer shouted. It's no use! I can't get the furball to wake up! I'll have to use the alternative! She pulled out a long red case from underneath the driver's seat. The inscription in white read, In case of emergency. She opened the case and pulls out a huge hypodermic syringe. What do you use that for? Grandpa Jack's eyes widen. That's something my engineer will use as an alternative, purred the conductress. When a bus sleeps heavy, we use Meowsomasu to wake it up. Keeps it up and running. Worst case scenario is that we may not go anywhere without that drug. She gives the needle to the engineer before saying to the passengers, And I think you need to cover your ears. You don't know what will happen. The engineer climbs up onto the cat bus and jabs the needle onto it. The cat's eyes open and widen, then lets out a roar of pain. When Grandpa Jack uncovers his ears, he said, "He keeps roaring like that, and he'll sure to wake up the neighborhood." "Stuff and nonsense, darling," put the conductress. "It doesn't happen to good people. It only happens to bad people, especially the ones who deserve it. Bad people won't even bother to call the police. Even police are good people who deserve sleep." The engineer boards the cat bus, and she said, "Prepare for departure to Bomvaria. I will give you the word." He sat on the driver's seat, waiting patiently. "How far is Bomvaria?" Todd asked. 1,783 miles, purred the conductress. "We'll arrive in the morning. That gives your grandfather enough time to know the Princess Kitty better." "Don't worry, Grandpa," he said to his grandfather. "We'll tell you everything." The conductress turns and said to the engineer, "Take us out!" He bellows at the cat bus. "You heard her! Destination Bomvaria! Hop to it!" The destination sign on the cat bus read, Bomvaria. The cat bus roars and he's off. The Pratchett's watch as their home disappeared from sight. "Grandpa, what about the rest of the grandparents? Eileen, David, and Eliza?" Todd asked. "I'm sure they'll be fine," Grandpa Jack said. "But by the time they wake up, they'll be in for a surprise when I go outside." "If you look out the windows, you'll see the city street from here," purred the conductress. They look out the window and see the dark city in front of them, except the glowing of street lamps and some of the windows in the buildings lighting up the pavement. "Why, there's a silence in the city. There's nobody around, and everyone that we knew moved to higher ground," purred the conductress. "And speaking of higher ground, we'll go up from here, for that's not all you'll see." "How will you do that?" Grandpa Jack asked. "Have the bus climb on buildings, of course." "But you don't really mean that this bus—" "Oh, yes, he'll do. Just ask your granddaughter. You wait and see. There's one building, a tall one with a red roof." "But we'll get hurt inside. We'll be hurled all over the place. There's no seat belts." "Then I suggest you hang on, because here it comes." The cat bus ran towards the building with the red roof, going faster and faster and faster. Then, suddenly, the entire bus rears up and latches onto the building. Up and up the bus goes like an elevator, and Grandpa Jack shouted, "Help! It's the end! We're done for!" "No, we're not," purred the conductress. "You're still alive, are you?" Sure enough, in 12 to 15 seconds, the bus landed on top of the red roof. "This bus has gone mad!" Grandpa Jack shouted.
But at least you'll have a view,
Princess Kitty said.
"I can see the clock tower from here."
"I wish I could, Kitty. I'm too scared."
She takes him by the hand and assured him.
"Please look out."
He did, and looked amazed.
"You were right. Not only would I see the tower from here, I could see the sea as well."
"Well, that's nothing," purred the conductress. "He can even leap from building to building."
"How is that possible?"
Grandpa Jack asked. "Sometimes you have to see for yourself. They must be believed to be seen." The cat bus bellowed and leaps from building to building. Some tiles are knocked off, even chimneys. The wind around the group blow into their hairs. The children smiled as they feel the breeze. As soon as they reach the end, the cat bus leaps off, landed onto the road before running through the forest. The conductor starts up the Victrola, and the soft sound of music emits from it. Grandpa Jack listened, entranced. "You have a good taste in music," purred the conductress. "So do I."
Grandpa Jack nodded. I gotta give you that. The Victrola began blaring out a song that goes, There's nobody just like you, sweetheart. There's nobody loves you so. There's nothing can change the tender vows and the love of the long ago.
Perhaps there's someone I'd like you to meet, she said, bringing forth a picnic basket. You'll be seeing them more often. She opens the lid, and 2 black cats came poking up. They were slender, with their big golden eyes that stared blankly at the Pratchett's.
Oh,
Audrey exclaimed.
they're so adorable.
Of course they are, purred the conductress. At least, that's what any unfortunate rogue thinks at first. What do you mean? Todd asked. That's for me to know and you to find out if trouble comes, purred the conductress. You mean they're really dangerous? Audrey asked, concerned. Not to you, little girl. Not even your brother and your grandfather. Audrey can see the 2 cats climb onto her lap, their heads rubbing against her torso, emitting low purrs. See? Purred the conductress. You can pet them if you like. They really like that. Audrey hesitantly did so, even stroking their necks. Of course, that made the cats meow at her affectionately, probably making her forget the fact that these 2 are actually considered dangerous. What are their names? Todd asked. The conductress answered. I call these 2 Haruka and Minako. Nervously, Todd can't help but look at his sister with the purring cats. Any refreshments before you retire? The conductress went on, carrying a small bowl. What do you have? Grandpa Jack asked. From the ceiling, a furry tube comes down towards the bowl where the conductress was holding. There was a deep groan, and a load of small, colorful balls came pouring out and into the bowl. When it's done, the tube recedes. What are those? Todd asked. These are mouth-melting gobstoppers, put the conductress. Just put them in your mouth, and you can suck them on and on until it dissolves completely in about 5 minutes. If you 3 want sleep, take the blue ones. You'll be tired soon. The Pratchetts take the blue gobstoppers and put them in their mouths. Now that it's done, I'll get your bed ready, the conductress went on. This'll be a long 1,783 miles. They can feel their seat stretching and lengthening. By the time it's done, it's the size of a bed. The cats Haruka and Minako leap off Audrey and onto the bed, stretching. But where can we find blankets? Todd asked. There's a pouch underneath you, purred the conductress. It can be used as a blanket. Seeing the pouch, the passengers stretched it so it was large enough for them to fit in. Reminds me of the bed back home, Grandpa Jack said. Makes me feel like I never left it. The passengers saw the ceiling transform into the night sky. They took in great amazement. It's the most beautiful sight I've ever seen, Audrey gasped.
My royal family shall expect your arrival once you've fallen asleep,
Princess Kitty stated. Soon enough, they began to feel tired.
What are your parents like, Kitty? Grandpa Jack asked.
That depends on where you shall meet them,
Princess Kitty stated.
So sleep well tonight, and dream some good things, Pratchetts.
Once the passengers are fallen asleep, Princess Kitty remained staring out of one of the windows. Unaware of her, Haruka and Minako glared at the conductress deviously. She said softly to them, Be patient. You'll get your chance. She turned and said to the engineer, Dim the lights for further comfort. Are the exterior lights still on?
Still bright, boss, the engineer said. As long as that pussy of yours didn't slow down and fall asleep.
He keeps this up, and we'll arrive at our destination. To the Pratchett's, the way to the dream realm is getting near, and their Catgo princess will be quite sincere. She pulls out her violin and climbs to the top of the Kappas, leaving the engineer in charge. There she begins to play a serene waltz, which echoes throughout the woods.